Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Eden Road podcast. Today, we're doing the same thing we've done the last couple of weeks. We're going over the England result. Obviously, England are now through to the semi-finals of Euro 2024 after a penalty shootout win over Switzerland in the last round. Probably the most encouraging performance. We're going to dissect how encouraging it was. I've digested a lot of England content in the last couple of days. Mixed kind of reviews about England's performance, how good it was, how average it was. So we're going to get into it. We're going to give our thoughts and opinions. Dan is back. Welcome back, Dan. How are you, mate?
All good. They love to test our nerves, don't they?
They really do. They really do. Craig, how are we?
Yeah, very good. Very happy to be where we are, even if we're not having the most fantastic of performances.
Yeah, exactly. And Callum's not here. He sent us a WhatsApp message. He was supposed to join, but he said the police are on his bus in Germany or something like that. So yeah, Callum, if you're listening, mate, we hope you're safe. I guess stop being an England yob, and yeah, we'll hopefully see him on the next episode should we progress. Anyway, before we get going, guys, remember to drop a comment down below, subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels, and also give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Eden Road on Twitter and at Eden Road Pod on Instagram. Craig, I'm going to come to you first, mate, because I remember a section on the last podcast where I asked you about, well, I said that I was positive, and I asked you if I was being an idiot, thinking that Southgate could make some changes. And you said, you know, this is Southgate, he doesn't make changes. And I'm going to come to you first on your thoughts on the lineup, because there were changes. There's a change of shape. Mark Gay obviously was suspended, so he didn't make the lineup, but Konsa came in. We switched to a back five. Saka, we thought would be on the left, but ended up on the right. So Trippier was still on the left, and the left-hand side did look a little bit weak throughout the game. But if your thoughts on the lineup, first of all, Craig, because when I saw the lineup, I think it was only until kickoff that everyone realised that maybe it was basically the same thing out of possession, as opposed to in possession. But yeah, what were your thoughts on the lineup?
Well, he made a fool of me, didn't he, straight away? I think that a change is what was necessary. However, the change that I saw possibly happening isn't the change that actually happened. I felt like we went... You could look at it as more defensive, but also as more offensive with the two wider players as well. The fact that Trippier was left side and Saka was right side, obviously, come the end of the game, it paid off with Saka's ability to cut in on that left foot. But it did throw a few question marks out there as to whether or not that was the right decision to have Trippier out on that left-hand side. But I said this before when we did the one after, it might have been the Denmark game, not the round of 16, is that we don't look shaky defensively. It's offensively which we kind of have been questioning with Harry Kane and things like that, which obviously we'll go on to. And I think it was another good defensive performance. I know people are questioning what happened with their goal, but I think John Stones, as a defender, you've got to make a decision in that area as well to whether or not he's going to make an effort for the ball, and it was just unfortunate. But I was quite happy to see a change. But the changes that I did see weren't the ones that we got. So it was a bit 50-50.
Yeah, it was a little bit 50-50. I think the Saka one, for me, I remember I put a tweet out even, and I remember texting some of my boys, and I was just saying, why is he... Everyone's expected the back five. That was been rumoured all week. And we were all expecting Saka to go over to the left and Trippier to get dropped, and then probably Trent on the right. But I think Southgate even said in his post-match, you know, Saka was our biggest threat in the game, and we thought that would be the case. So maybe they've looked at the Swiss left wing back and thought, you know what, Saka could probably hurt them. And to be fair, Saka basically played as a right wing. Like, he didn't do much defensive work throughout the whole game. So the changes were definitely necessary. I think Phil Foden probably had his best game of the tournament, and you know that doesn't really come as a big surprise because he's not been playing on the left where he isn't as effective. And he actually was playing in that 10. And I think Bellingham and Foden actually really worked well together behind Kane. But your thoughts on the performance, Dan? Because I've listened to at least like 5 or 6 podcasts post this match. I feel like there have been some more considered, thoughtful podcasts, and there's been some like England fan podcasts. And the England fan podcasts kind of go over the top. And I think that whilst the performance was better, I didn't think it was great. I thought the first half was probably the best half of football, and then we kind of reverted to type in the second half, and only really came alive once they scored. And then after we scored, we kind of sat back again, and we're kind of playing for penalties. So your thoughts on the performance, Dan?
It was certainly better. I don't think it was as good as even the BBC made out, especially at half time. I went to the toilet in the pub and all I heard was them saying, "Oh, that was brilliant," or something like that. But it was far from brilliant. I think we play low margin football, whereas every game we play, and I think the Netherlands game will go similarly, there won't be much in it. Because, we are quite solid defensively. We like to keep the ball, but we're a bit slow on the ball and we don't do a lot with the ball. And again, for the second game running, our first shot on target was a goal. And if you think of how late we've scored the 2 goals, we are in a way relying on a bit of magic. And because obviously they were also both very good goals. But I guess with the players we do have plenty of magic, and we have players that can come up with those moments. And you do wonder that if when we come to play the better teams, which even Netherlands, they're a better team, but they're not one of the best. But, if we were to get to the final and would just face Spain or France, then you do wonder whether the way we play might suit those sorts of games, or they'll keep it low margin at the very least. And then in that situation, it could go either way. But it was certainly better. I thought the back 5 and the higher up wing backs allowed Foden and Bellingham to be more central. It's obviously where they want to be. In hindsight, keeping Saka on the right worked, and it allowed him to do more like what he does for Arsenal as well. Hopefully we'll see Luke Shaw come back in after he played a part in this game, so he can play on the left going forward. So you can see how it will work. I don't think he'll change it back now. I think he'd be very silly to. But yeah, it was better. And Switzerland were the best team that we've also played so far. So you've got to also take that into account, and the way they took apart Italy. We generally controlled the game. So it's just that chance creation that we need to get better at.
It is tournament football, though. It's a low margins business. I think I've heard Deschamps speak about how France don't play attractive football at all, but they just always get the job done. And he's said something along the lines of criticize me when I lose. And they've got to now, I think, 4 semi-finals in the last 5 major tournaments, which is just insane.
And they've not scored a goal from open play yet.
And they haven't scored a goal from open play this tournament. So it works. It's a results business at the end of the day. We will get on Southgate's back, but we're here. The team have somehow managed to scrape through until the semi-finals. Let's talk about Saka, Craig, because he's been getting, and rightly so. I think I heard Gary Lineker say he's like a universally loved footballer, and the bottle on him to step up and take that penalty. And I know that he's done it so many times for Arsenal since what happened in the last Euros. And I think he scored since the Euros final in 2021. I think he scored 14 out of his 15 penalties that he's taken in for England and in the Premier League, which is an incredible record. But his smile when he turned around and he scored, Craig, that was an unreal moment for English football, yeah. I think.
I remember being in the pub and seeing Saka step up for that penalty, and normally you just watch people walking up for penalties and you think, no, he's going to miss or what. But no, everyone in the pub was like, he's going to score this one. And it just felt like it was right. He had to score that one. But yeah, it's some bottle on him to be able to go and do that. What Lineker said, he's one of them universally loved players. For England, I hate him when he plays for Arsenal because he's so good. Because he's so good. I don't like watching him play against you, because that one moment of magic and the ball is in the back of your net, and he's just a fantastic player. But for England, yeah, phenomenal. I back him all the way to do what he does best. And when he picks out the bottom corner from a nothing shot, really, it looked like it, and he kept
weird,
it low.
wasn't it?
It's kind of gone through everybody and snuck itself into that bottom corner. Yeah, I'm absolutely buzzing for him. It's phenomenal what he's done, really, from that setback in the Euro final to be able to bounce back and set himself an incredibly high standard, which he has done. Yeah, he should be very proud of himself and the way he's bounced back, and I'm glad to see people rallying behind him rather than getting on top of him.
Yeah, exactly. I love how he's added to his game the fact that he can now go both ways. Because I remember when he came through at Arsenal, he would always cut in from the right and get onto his left foot. But I think there's been a few occasions this time. I don't think he's had the best tournament. I think he was our best player against Switzerland in the quarterfinal. But I don't think he's had his best tournament. But even playing for Arsenal this season and a couple of times throughout the tournament, you've seen his ability to somehow get out of tight situations and then take it onto his right foot as opposed to come back onto his left foot. And it just gives the fullback different problems. But yeah, incredible performance from him. And I want to talk about Kobbie Mainoo's performance as well. But just before we do that, Dan, Jordan Pickford, I saw a tweet saying that he's been Southgate's best player in his whole tenure as England manager. And I didn't think it was a crazy tweet. Genuinely, like, I think he's... So, and I want to get this right. I think the previous, since Jordan Pickford started playing for England, I think the previous goalkeepers going all the way back to like the 60s or something stupid like that had saved 2 penalties or something between them. And Jordan Pickford has saved 4 in his whole England career. So, I mean, he is so reliable. And I think there were a few people maybe in Qatar that said he probably could have saved Tchouameni's shot. But I mean, apart from that, that's probably the only like minor stain on his whole England career, and he always produces the goods in penalty shootout. So Jordan Pickford, Dan, talk to me.
Yeah, I was telling my friends in the pub that he might take a penalty because that wouldn't surprise me. He's done it before and he scored, and it wouldn't surprise me. I definitely don't think he'd be at the bottom of the list if it went to sudden death in terms of taking it. I mean, his attitude and his almost arrogance in a way, I think you kind of need a bit of that to play in goal for your country, a major tournament. With all the pressure that's on the team, I think, he can handle it. And we've, us growing up, when we've seen, other keepers in major competitions for England, there's been some howlers in there. And, he's really taken the number one and he's never looked back, even when, he's been struggling at times for Everton. I think he's had a very good season this season. But obviously, he's been at a club that's struggling. He's been up against other players. Obviously, Ramsdale was Arsenal's number one a couple of years ago, but, he never got a looking ahead of Pickford. And I think Southgate trusts him, and you can see why. He's never really let us down. And yeah, I just think he has that attitude and the confidence that, even the defence, they feel more assured of him behind them.
I think all of them looked confident going into that penalty shootout. Genuinely, every single one of them looked so confident going into it. There was... Obviously, it's England, so I was I was at the pub, but like almost crouched behind the bench that I was looking at. That I was like, I think most people were, but just the way they put them away, even Pickford when he was in goal, the mind games that he was playing, I just thought this probably will be it. But I want to talk about Kobbie Mainoo as well, Craig, because I just feel like, I think maybe bar Saka, I think he was our second best player, and I thought he was our best player against Slovakia, sorry. And this kid's rise has just been unbelievable this season. Like, I know that he picked up an injury for Manchester United, which kind of stopped him from getting in the team in pre-season and then going into the start of last season. But once he got into the United team, I think United fans rave about him. And it was only when he started to put together, like, and obviously I was just about to say he's a Man United fans rave about it, but obviously I don't watch him every week. But I feel like you kind of do watch him every week because Man United are on telly every week, so it's hard not to watch him every week. And you kind of do buy into the praise that they've been giving him, and especially since he's played for England, he just looks so calm whenever he gets the ball. He was kind of come in and maybe solved Southgate's problems more than any other player that's come into the team. And obviously that's been at the expense of Adam Wharton. And I know you rate Adam Wharton quite highly, Craig, as well. But I think Southgate definitely trusts Mainoo more. That's evident. And again, one of our best players in the last game. He's got bags of potential, Kobbie Mainoo, and I think he's going to go really far, Craig.
Yeah, he's finally found his Calvin Phillips replacement.
I
thought he was actually really unlucky not to score. I think it was Xhaka put in a fantastic block in the Swiss penalty area when Saka has beaten his defender going down the right rather than cutting in on the left. He goes down the right, gets the ball across to Mainoo, who connects well, but there's a brilliant block, and he was unfortunate not to score. He's everywhere. He's one of those players that's just everywhere. No matter where the ball is, no matter where you look on the pitch, he's there. He's very, I would say he's very like N'Golo Kante-esque. You know, when you think about Kante when he was at Chelsea and when he was playing for Leicester or the early years at first few seasons at Chelsea as well. He's very Kante-esque, where he's just everywhere. He's comfortable with the ball at his feet, and he can progress the players up the pitch as well. As soon as the ball's at his feet, it looks like he only has one thought in his mind, and that's to just push the team forward, get up the pitch. And that's kind of one of the players of which we've needed this tournament. Because although we've had Phil Foden, we've had Jude Bellingham, we've had Saka, Harry. I would say we've had Harry Kane. Yeah, Harry Kane spent most of the game an hour and a half against Switzerland. We've got Kyle Walker, who's again another fantastic progressive player. I just think that he's one of those little missing puzzle pieces that we've needed to be able to get the team forwards, and he does it so smoothly. He does it so well, and yeah, he's got bags of potential, and he's got one hell of a future ahead of him.
Yeah, future's looking good, boys. Even if it doesn't come home this tournament, future is looking very, very good with some of the talent that's coming through. Under 21s winning the Euros last season, it's going to be good. Cole Palmer, I think, will get more football, and he's going to play a lot more for England than he has been playing. And he's been fantastic so far, but I feel like maybe this tournament's just come a little too soon for him. But again, he's probably going to be a starter for the next couple of tournaments, 3 or 4 tournaments at least. You mentioned Harry Kane there, Craig. Dan, you missed the Harry Kane conversation that we had last week. And we were essentially saying he doesn't look good enough. Callum was saying you should drop him and put Ollie Watkins in. There's been more conversations around his performances after the one against Switzerland. And you've seen the Ronaldo comparisons going around, like we're just keeping him on for the sake of keeping him on. I said last week, Dan, that I don't think you can drop Harry Kane just because if a chance does come up, he's the one that you want on the end of it. But there's more clamours for it. I'm not sure. It was poor. It was probably his worst performance against Switzerland, and considering it was England's best performance, it doesn't really add up in the tournament. But just what do you think is going on there? To me, I think he doesn't look sharp. I'm not sure if it's that back problem that he picked up against when he was playing for Bayern Munich towards the end of the last season, but he doesn't look maybe fully fit. But he just looks off it, Dan.
Yeah, I mean it's a really difficult one because of what he's done for us. He's our captain, he's our record scorer, and he still popped up with 2 goals in this competition, even though he's not firing at all. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was to score in the semi-final and again in the final.
Mm-hmm.
If he just pops up in the right place at the right time after having a bad game. I definitely think he should be taken off earlier if he's not playing well enough. I think Southgate needs to be braver to take him off earlier. I do agree that it's difficult to drop him from the start. And I also think that he can just be told to stay high. He doesn't need to be dropping deep all the time, like making defensive tackles. He was almost a better defender than he was an attacker in the last game. And that can come from the manager, surely. Just tell him to stay high. He's not going to say no. And that might, solve some of the problems. And I get it. He's probably frustrated because he's not getting the ball much. But then when we're dropping deeper and deeper and deeper, and he's coming deeper and deeper and deeper as well, there's no outball.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs to be there to be the outball, and he needs to be there. There's a couple of times where he put some crosses in, and he just wasn't there. And he needs to be there. We've got enough players behind him now, and there's not going to be people running beyond him. So he's got to be that focal point. We've got enough creative players behind him to do that job. So
For sure.
I think I would still start him, but I would not hesitate in making changes earlier. And I think that's something Southgate in general needs to do, because it looked like Switzerland were going to score, and we didn't do anything about it until they did score. So I think he just needs to act earlier if it's not working.
I mean, yeah, he's only given Ivan Toney, a minute in the Slovakia game, and he brought him on in extra time to take the penalty. So it's not like he's rolling the dice in terms of... the only time he has rolled the dice is when he brought Kane off in, the 60th minute against Denmark and put Ollie Watkins on. So, I mean... What do you think, Craig? Ivan is probably the obvious replacement. I think if he was going to drop or bring someone on a bit earlier to replace Harry Kane if he's not firing, Ivan's the like for like in terms of what he gives you, whereas Ollie Watkins is a different type of striker. But
he's the like for like, but it also depends on what the situation is in the game. Because if we're chasing the game, a striker like Ollie Watkins is a good replacement to bring on. That is someone who is going to stay high at every opportunity he gets. He is also going to chase every ball, and he's got the pace to beat defenders. He's absolutely got the pace to beat defenders, where we know firsthand Ivan Toney is not necessarily the quickest player on the pitch. However, when the ball goes to him, you know that he's going to do something with it, whether he brings it down and brings other players into it or he flicks it on. You just know that he's going to do something with it. But I feel like it's situation dependent, that kind of change. However, if it's from the start, from kickoff, then I have no issue with it being Kane out, Ivan in. And obviously that's maybe people viewing that as a biased Brentford point of view, but as an England fan, watching someone who has not been performing at their optimal, who was very clearly injured coming into the tournament, has been lackluster, has been a bit slow, has been a bit lethargic. Yeah, he's popped up with 2 goals, which was just not an easy feat in an international competition, you know what I mean, like this. But to see maybe a change, like for like change, we'd have to start Ivan, but situation dependent is whether we bring Ollie Watkins on, because he's going to chase it, he's going to create things. But we've said it before, whether we need a play to striker or a play through striker, because Ivan is a play through striker.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, Ollie Watkins does provide so many things that are different. I think he's much better in the press than both Ivan Toney and Harry Kane, but I don't think the team's really pressed at all well this whole tournament. I think Jude runs about just like non-stop. He just does not stop running, but just sometimes I'm watching him press and it's just like you just need to just stop and look at what's going on in front of you a little bit, because he just runs and runs and runs. But I don't want to criticize Jude because he's Jude, so you can't really do that. Let's go. Just a quick word on Ivan, Dan, because I tweeted out on the podcast account, you know, we've all criticised him a lot this season, but it was a cool moment it's still a cool moment to see him coming on the pitch and scoring penalties and having a part to play in this tournament. I feel like we had the conversation at the end of last season about, do we care whether he does well for England or not? And I feel like I'm going to have to eat my words because I kind of do. I do get a little bit happy when he comes on the pitch. Like, I do root for him. I want him to come on and score and do well. So yeah, just on Ivan Toney, Dan, it's nice to see him coming on the pitch, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, several years ago, we wouldn't even imagine this would happen to any Brentford player coming on for England at a major tournament, and he's done quite well when he's played. And I think we're seeing the better side of him in this tournament. I think we've always said that we're grateful for all he's done for Brentford. He's obviously been a brilliant player for Brentford, but he probably has outstayed his time at Brentford a little bit, because, you know, he would probably be the first to admit that he's not been good enough since he's come back. But he's taken his chances. Obviously, I'm glad he scored the penalty and didn't miss it on the big stage. And you know, it's a technique that everyone's talking about now, but you know, we knew all about it. And yeah, he's done very well. And even when he came on and played with Kane, I think that's also an option, because I thought they looked good together. And if Kane is insistent on coming deep, then at least he's got Toney next to him to hopefully holds the line. So yeah, he's contributed more than maybe even he would have thought that he did. Even if he said that Southgate said that Toney was disgusted with him when he came on late on.
Yeah, I mean, he would be. But you're right, though. In the game against Slovakia, he did hold the line. I know that he probably only expected to play a couple of minutes because it looked like we were certain to go out. But when he played in extra time, he did hold the line really well. He did hold the ball up. He did win the fouls. He did everything that Kane hadn't been doing in the previous 2 games. So it's definitely an option to have. And I hope we do see more of him. I just don't know if we will. I just don't think you can drop Kane. Like, he is, for all the reasons you said, Dan. He's our captain. He's done so much. And if there is a chance, you wouldn't bet against him to score in any kind of given situation. He just needs to maybe get a bit more fitness. But it's a fast turnaround. The games, we're recording this on Tuesday, and the game is tomorrow. So, you know, there's fast turnarounds. He's not going to have that much time to recuperate his fitness. But let's hope that he can find a bit of form, because I think we will need him to if we want to go and win it. Because I mean, going into the tournament, it would have been weird to think that England could have won it without a fully fit and firing Harry Kane. Like, you'd go as far to say he's going to be our most important player, because he has been at the last, 3 tournaments. So it's definitely difficult. Let's chat about Gareth Southgate, Craig. England's 3rd semi-final in 4 tournaments under Gareth Southgate. We've given him our stick. He is a very rigid manager, but you can't deny that he gets teams into these situations where they've got a chance to qualify for the next round of the major tournament. I still think, regardless of the result on Wednesday, and regardless of the result, if we get through that game, if we end up winning the whole thing, I still do think he should probably leave. I think other managers could probably do better with this team, and especially with some of the attacking talent that we've got coming through. But he's somehow managed to instill within this team this belief that they just don't want to give up. I mean, in the game against Slovakia, we were dead on our feet. In this game, when Switzerland scored, it only took us 5 minutes to respond. just Gareth Southgate, he's such a polarizing figure, Craig. And I think you're more leaning to the side where you don't like him or you don't rate him as a manager as high. And I completely agree with you. I don't think he's like an elite level manager, but you can't deny that he's done amazing things with the England setup since he came in ages ago.
I mean, obviously, besides winning the World Cup back in '66, he is undeniably the most successful England manager ever. Based on, all right, yeah, we haven't won anything, but we've kind of always been there or thereabouts. Be it the 3 semi-finals, and then it was the quarterfinal against France in the World Cup, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
So. I mean, even to just say 4 out of 4 competitions, we've got to at least quarterfinals, is something that after crashing out against Iceland and things like that with Roy Hodgson, you didn't think that we would be, sitting here having this conversation, looking forwards to a semi-final against the Netherlands with the possibility of us winning a competition with only winning one game in 90 minutes, because I don't see us winning a game again. Just extra time or penalties, I'll take it. But yeah, no, undeniably the most successful England manager. But yeah, I mean, he's in his management style, he's very clearly a defender.
Yeah.
He's very clearly a defender, but I mean, there's not really much else to say about him other than the fact that he is undeniably the most successful England manager of in recent history. Just it's kind of dull, defensive, catch teams on the counter attack football, which actually may help us against teams like the Netherlands and against teams like Spain or France, who are going to definitely attack us more than any other team have done so far this tournament. So it may help us, may be in our favor. But yeah, I think that no matter what the result is, his tenure's up. Not based on the fact that he isn't good enough, based on the fact that if we don't win it, I hate that I'm hating myself for saying this. He's still a failure. He hasn't won anything. Yeah, we've always been there, but if you get there and falter at the last stage every single time, something's obviously not quite right. You can't fall at the last hurdle every single time when you get that opportunity. But I think that we can kind of see that he's run his race with England now. There's an opportunity for another manager to come in and just kick the team onto that next level.
Yeah, I think for me, there's been, like we said, he's somehow just got this knack of getting England through in these situations. But for me, there's been so many instances where there's been mistakes and they don't really get learned from. Sometimes with the subs, they're reactive. I mean, it's taken him all the way up until the quarterfinals to actually play Foden in the position that he should be playing. And like Foden's one of our best players. But for me, there's just been mistakes. The fact that when we score, we sit back. That goes as far back as 2021 in the Euros final, and we still do that kind of thing. We don't really go for the kill, and he is a defender, so he's safe. Good defenses win tournaments, but we haven't won a tournament yet, and I feel like there needs to be more of a reliance on the attacking players. But for me, I just think there's just been too many times where it's either taken him too long to react to something, or he's done the same thing and expected different results. Like the first 2 games, exactly the same lineup. Foden was getting isolated. Trippier on the left, not bring the left back. There's too many things, and I'm not in the camp of like Southgate in or Southgate out. I'm just very indifferent towards him now. I feel like he's done a great job. He's had his time. If we win it, I'll love him. If we don't win it, I'll still love him. But for me, I think there are managers out there that could do a better job. Dan, I'm going to come to you before we start talking about the Netherlands game. Gareth Southgate, what do you think?
I think we're dreadful to watch, but the way he plays, it does work to an extent in tournaments, and it has worked to an extent in tournaments. I know a lot of people say we haven't played anyone good yet, but that's not really his fault. The draw is what the draw is. If France won their group, we would be in the same half of them, but they didn't. We can only beat who's in front of us. And obviously, we will have a bigger challenge coming our way if we are to go all the way. So we will see. And I really want it for him. I think he deserves it, but I do think his time has come. I think he's taken us as far as he can. But I think it can't be underestimated what he's done, and it will help the next guy. Because even like penalty shootouts, he's changed the whole mindset behind penalty shootouts, and now I probably go into any penalty shootout. I think we're probably the favourites because
For
the
sure.
way he's quite methodical and the way he's planned it all out through his own experiences as being a player as well and losing penalties. It's clearly had an impact, and there's clearly the culture side and the belief side of things he's very good at, but obviously the tactical side is where he falls down a little bit, and that's why we haven't quite got over the line at times. But I do also think you've got to think about the next guy too, and I think we could be sitting here in a few years' time. I know we kind of know with someone like Lee Carsley as manager, and he will get exactly similar. But everyone else who's not a Brentford fan and didn't experience that month when he was in charge, that they're going to be underwhelmed by it, and that as soon as something doesn't look quite right, he's going to get similar criticisms. So unless we can get like a big name in, but it's difficult. I mean, Jurgen Klopp's free. Where do you want to come manage England? I don't know. But
I don't. Go on, Kieran.
Disappointing is unless you're going to get a big name like that, I think it will be difficult.
Yeah, I think Lee. That's okay, mate. Don't worry. Lee Carsley, he does play some really good football with the under-21s, and obviously they had a great tournament last time out. But it is a very Southgate-esque appointment. It's just who. I think this is a whole other podcast in terms of Southgate's successor and who comes in. But for me, I think the ideal one would be Eddie Howe, but I don't know if Eddie Howe is done with club football yet, and if he'd want to take, I think he's got probably the best job in the world at Newcastle in terms of the money and resources they can spend or will be able to spend once they bypass PSR somehow. But it's
Graham
just
Potter.
a case of who. It's quite a sad, Graham Potter. It's quite a sad indictment on English football that the one manager that we'd all want to do it are the best managers in the world, like Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp and Jose Mourinho, and these managers who aren't English. But I don't know. Did either of you guys have a problem when it was like Sven or when it was Capello? For me, I'd much rather it be an English manager win the tournament with England as opposed to someone else.
I would prefer it, but I didn't have a problem when the women's team won, and obviously,
exactly,
managed by a Dutch woman. If they embrace the culture and they, embrace, the English team and anything about England, then I'm sure we won't complain if we win.
Yeah, but I feel like maybe that's being priced into the FA's thinking, and that we want someone like Lee Carsley who has played for Ireland, if I'm correct. He didn't even play for England, but he qualified. I think he might qualified for Ireland like through a grandma or how some of these things work. But they probably do want someone who's English to take the job afterwards, and I think Lee Carsley would definitely ruffle some feathers because it's a very Gareth Southgate-esque appointment. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about the Dutch game. I think one of you mentioned Luke Shaw. I can't remember who mentioned it, but Luke Shaw did come on against Switzerland. I'm going to come to you, Craig. Do we think against the Dutch, first of all, they don't play in a back five, they play as a back four. So do we think Southgate's going to match them up and go back to a back four and maybe bring Luke Shaw in on the left side and replace Trippier? Because I mean, when Luke Shaw did come back, even though he's been out for months and months and months, he didn't look out of place. He really did not look out of place. And if I'm Luke Shaw, I probably, as opposed to coming on at 60, I probably want to start the game as opposed to coming on. But how do you see it going against the Netherlands, Craig? I've seen a lot of people saying that there's going to be more space because of how the Dutch play. Might play into our hands a little bit more, but how do you think it's going to
go? Well, he did say in a post-match interview that he's ready to play 90 minutes, Luke Shaw, didn't he? I think to the BBC or something. So if he's fit and he is ready and he is available to play, then he should be playing. He is our left back. He should be playing at left back without a shadow of a doubt. I do feel sorry for Konsa because I think Ezri Konsa did really well against Switzerland, but he is going to go straight back out for Mark Gurhey.
Yeah.
Or however we want to say his name. That will be a swap out straight away. But credit to him, he did fantastic against the Swiss. It was a great performance. But Mark Gurhey's been phenomenal while he's been available as well. So, I mean, it's a hard one to call really because you've got to also look at them. Look at the Dutch offensively as well. I mean, you've got Cody Gakpo, you've got Memphis Depay, you've got Bergwijn, you've got even from set pieces, you've got Van Dijk, you've got De Vries, you've got Frimpong, Dumfries. They've got an incredible squad as well. So we cannot, and I know other people aren't anyway, but we cannot write them off at all because this is going to be the biggest challenge that we have thus far. hopefully one more afterwards as well. But I really couldn't call what formation we're going to go with. I really couldn't. I think Luke Shaw comes back in. And I think that if he comes back in, we kind of have to go back to a back four, because I don't know if he's fit enough to be a left wing back rather than just a left back. But to have that left-footed option at left back, we saw it momentarily while Saka played at left back against was it Slovakia, the round of 16 game, when he played it on that left side, and you could just see how much it opens the pitch up when a player can open their body and just work themselves down that line. Absolutely beneficial to the team and integral to the team, especially the way that we want to play, that we have a left-footed left back. And if he's fit to play 90 minutes, then he should play 90 minutes. Formation-wise, I think if we play Shaw, we go back to a 4. But if we don't, then I've got no idea.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. I think Gakpo as well. Like, where the hell? Gakpo for Liverpool fans were absolutely slating him at the back end of last season, and he's just been incredible this tournament. Some of the goals, some of the assists that he scored. He's definitely going to be a handful. Dan, how do you see it, mate?
I would stick with the back 5. I think you want Foden and Bellingham in the 10s. You want that. I think that back 5 solves most of the problems we have. And the only problem that wasn't solved is Trippier still at left wing back. But if Luke Shaw is fit, even just to play half the game, I would still give him that half and see how he goes. And if he needs to come off after 45 minutes, an hour, then do that. And then obviously we'll have to go back to Trippier. But I think if you play a back 5 still with Luke Shaw at left back, then you've got a left-footed left back. Hopefully that will activate the left side a bit more. Obviously Saka can still do his thing similarly to what he does to Arsenal, still from that position. And then you've got the 2 10s. So I think the only change, if there are going to be any changes, is likely to be Shaw for Trippier. And I hope he sticks to the back 5, because I think it solves more problems than just going back to a 4 with Foden on the left wheel.
Yeah, for sure. I think, boys, after the last 2 results, last minute equaliser against Slovakia, Pens win against the Swiss, surely we're going all the way, aren't we? Surely? No?
It'll be close. It'll be very close. One goal either way.
I think that'd be a good point to wrap up the podcast, guys. The Eden Road podcast will be back regardless of the result on Wednesday night. We'll be back for another podcast to either revel in the joy of an England win or cry in the despair of England being dumped out of the tournament. But let's hope for 2 more pods. We're doing it a Euros wrapped as well. Just before we go, remember to drop a comment down below. Do you think we'll get the win against the Dutch in the next round? Would you like to see Ivan Toney start from the front? And are England going to do it? Because really, I feel like the last 2 results, just the nature of it, there's just I think I am just a bit of an idiot when it comes to England. I'm far too hopeful. I really am. But I just think we might be able to do it. And yeah, remember to subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels, and also drop us a follow on the socials. That's at the Eden Road on Twitter and at Eden Road Pod on Instagram. Dan, Craig, it's been a pleasure. Come on, England, let's do it.
Up the bees.
Up the bees.
Up the England.